Even when you do everything right, it can't always stop bad policing. But when you record everything, it can help stop the blame.
I see more good people convict themselves out of politeness than any piece of physical evidence ever could.
So they've been taught how they ask questions and when they ask questions make a big difference in the type of responses they get.
Because the roadside is not where you win the argument, it's where you avoid the extra charges.
And doing that often gives the officer evidence he needs to charge you.
Sound insane? It absolutely is, but unfortunately it happens a lot.
You're driving home from dinner with your family, everything's fine, and then you see it, and red and blue lights flashing in your rearview mirror. Your heart drops. You pull over, you're polite, you're cooperative, and when the officer walks up and asks, "Do you have any weapons in the car?" you answer honestly, and just like that, without realizing it, you've handed that officer the perfect excuse to control you, separate you from your vehicle, and start fishing for a reason to tear your car apart. What you say in the next 3 seconds can either protect you or destroy your night. And most people, even legal, law-abiding gun owners, get this catastrophically wrong. Here's the thing nobody tells you about traffic stops. They feel casual. The officer's tone is conversational. The questions seem harmless. But every single word you say is being evaluated, cataloged, and potentially used to build a case. Not for you, but against you. And when a firearm enters the equation, the dynamics of that stop shift dramatically. So today we're going to break down exactly what happens when an officer discovers you're carrying, why that almost always escalates toward a vehicle search, and most importantly, the precise language you should use to protect yourself without looking suspicious or combative. But first, we need to cover the basics, because if you get the foundation wrong, nothing else matters. In virtually every state in this country, when you're pulled over during a traffic stop, you have a legal obligation to provide your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and proof of insurance when requested. That's baseline. That's non-negotiable. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Something about the right to travel, meaning you don't need a license. Let me stop you right there. The constitutional right to travel has absolutely nothing to do with operating a motor vehicle without a license. It's about your freedom to move between states and be treated fairly when you arrive. It's about international movement. It has zero, and I mean zero, to do with driving without documentation. The people who try to invoke this during a traffic stop don't solve problems. They create them. They turn a simple speeding ticket into an arrest for refusal to identify or obstruction of justice. So throw that entire mindset away. The mindset you actually want during a traffic stop is this: comply physically, but don't volunteer information verbally.
And in traffic stops and thought, it's no big deal, until that leads to a DWI arrest, a resisting arrest, or a drug charge.
But the moment an officer learns a gun's involved, the stop changes.
You have to understand the 3 levels of police interaction. 1, the consensual encounter. 2, detainment. 3, arrest.
Remember, the officer may have a job to do in asking questions, but you have no obligation to give answers.
Because when cops make mistakes, they often have the tools, the training, and the authority to rewrite the script.
Here's the secret. During a consensual encounter, Miranda rights do not exist.
The roadside is never where you win, it's where you avoid making things worse. So here's your quick safety protocol. Pull over in a safe location. If it's nighttime, turn on your interior dome light. Keep both hands visible on the steering wheel. And if the officer asks you to retrieve something, narrate every movement out loud. Something like, "My registration is in the glove compartment. I'm reaching for it now." These small actions reduce tension and keep the interaction predictable for both sides. Now here's where everything changes. The officer looks at you and asks, "Any weapons in the vehicle?" Your answer to this question depends entirely on where you are in the United States, because firearm disclosure laws are not universal. They vary dramatically from state to state, and getting this wrong can have serious consequences. To simplify things, let's break the entire country into 3 categories. Category 1, duty to inform. In states like Texas, if you're carrying a firearm and you're pulled over, you are legally required to tell the officer proactively without being asked that you have a weapon. It's part of the permit structure. You don't wait for the question, you volunteer the information. Category 2, inform only if asked. States like Florida and New York fall into this bucket. You're not required to bring it up on your own, but if the officer directly asks whether you have a weapon, you may be legally obligated to answer truthfully, depending on your permit status and the specific state statute. Category 3, no duty to disclose whatsoever. States like Indiana fall here. The law doesn't require you to say a word about your firearm.
So, what should you do? Or better yet, not do when you get pulled over by the police?
They don't have to read you your rights because you aren't in custody. They can lie to you. They can trick you. And everything you say is admissible.
Some of these are contradictory, and it's kind of crazy. He was nervous. He was abnormally calm. Some of these are silly, and some of them are inconsistent.
That doesn't mean you have to give them the information that you're looking for. It is perfectly acceptable to say, I'm not answering your questions.
And I know this might seem obvious, but it's so hard to do. Stay calm and do not respond threatening to the officer.
But here's the trap. This is also where people talk themselves directly into a vehicle search because they feel like being open and honest is the safest play. It's not. And here's why. The moment an officer learns there's a gun involved, 3 psychological and tactical shifts happen simultaneously. First, threat perception spikes. Even if you're completely lawful, the officer's brain instantly processes unknown person plus firearm equals potential danger. Adrenaline increases, caution increases, and most critically, the officer's desire for control increases. What does that control look like in practice? It looks like step out of the vehicle. It looks like where exactly is the firearm? It looks like I'm going to secure that weapon for the duration of this stop. Second, the officer's legal toolbox expands significantly. Once officer safety enters the conversation, law enforcement can order you out of the car during a lawful stop, conduct a pat-down if they believe you may be armed and dangerous, and in certain circumstances, perform a limited protective sweep of areas within your reach inside the vehicle. All they need is enough articulable facts to justify the next step. And where do those facts come from? From you, from your nervousness, from your movements, from inconsistencies in your answers, from the neighborhood you're in, even from being abnormally calm, which, yes, is something that has been cited as suspicious behavior. It's contradictory and sometimes absurd, but the legal standard allows officers to combine innocent observations with their training and experience to form suspicion. Third, and this is the big one, everything you say helps build a narrative that supports searching your vehicle. If an officer doesn't have probable cause for a search, there are really only 2 paths to get inside your car. Either you consent, or the officer manufactures enough suspicion to extend the stop and escalate. And the number one tool for obtaining consent is social pressure. You'll hear things like, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" Or, "If you've got nothing to hide, there shouldn't be a problem." Or, "Help me understand why you seem so nervous." These questions are designed to make you feel like you need to prove you're innocent. But here's the truth you need to internalize. You don't talk your way out of a search, you talk your way into one. So let's go through the most common questions officers use and the exact responses that protect you. When an officer asks, "Where are you coming from?" they're not making small talk. They're locking you into a narrative they can pick apart later. Your response should be simple and direct. "I'm exercising my Fifth Amendment right." Some people prefer saying, "I don't answer questions," but that phrasing can come back to haunt you later when you do answer questions in a legal setting. Invoking the Fifth Amendment is clean, constitutional, and impossible to mischaracterize. When they ask, "Is there anything illegal in the car?" this is one of the most dangerous questions you can face. Because if they find anything, even something that isn't yours, even something a passenger left behind weeks ago, they can claim you lied. Nobody knows every single item inside their vehicle at all times. Someone could have dropped something between the seats. A friend could have left something in your car months ago. Claiming certainty about your vehicle's contents is a gamble you will eventually lose. So the answer is the same. I'm exercising my Fifth Amendment right. When they say, "You wouldn't mind if I take a look, right?" This is a consent trap disguised as a casual question. No matter how you answer, yes or no, the officer can frame your response as permission. The only safe answer is crystal clear and unambiguous. "I do not consent to any searches." Say it plainly. Say it so the body camera picks it up with zero room for misinterpretation. When they threaten to call a canine unit, understand this. Officers cannot legally extend a completed traffic stop just to wait for a drug dog without independent, reasonable suspicion. They know this. So what they do instead is try to generate that suspicion through your reactions, your answers, your body language. Many people panic at the mention of a dog and blurt out, "Fine, just search it then. Don't fall for it. Stay consistent. I do not consent to any searches." And then there's the attitude bait, when an officer deliberately pushes your buttons trying to get an emotional reaction, because an emotional driver makes mistakes. They get loud, they start reaching around the car, They say something reckless like, "Go ahead, search everything, I don't care." Your job in that moment is to become a broken record. Stay polite, stay calm, stay brief. Keep repeating your key phrases. Because if this ever goes to court, body camera footage of a calm, respectful citizen being pressured by an aggressive officer is extraordinarily powerful. Now, one absolutely critical point about handling firearms during a stop. If an officer wants to secure your weapon for the duration of the encounter, let them do it. But under no circumstances should you handle that firearm yourself in the officer's presence. If something goes sideways, if there's a misunderstanding, a sudden movement, a miscommunication, and you're touching a weapon near a police officer, the consequences can be catastrophic and irreversible. And the legal system will almost certainly side with the officer under the doctrine of officer safety. So if the officer asks you to hand over the weapon, tell them calmly, "I'm not comfortable handling the firearm in your presence. I'll tell you exactly where it is, and you're welcome to secure it yourself." Keep your hands visible, keep them high, make sure the officer can see you're not making any movement toward that weapon. So here's your complete roadside protocol if you're carrying. Step 1, know your state's disclosure law before you ever get behind the wheel. If you must disclose, do it immediately. If you only need to disclose when asked, answer truthfully when the question comes. If you have no obligation, say nothing. Step 2, comply with document requests, narrate your movements, and keep your hands visible at all times. Step 3, if asked to consent to a search, state clearly that you do not consent. If questions continue, invoke your Fifth Amendment right. Step 4, if the stop drags on, ask 2 simple questions on repeat. Am I being detained? And am I free to go? The side of the road is never your courtroom. Comply physically, assert your rights verbally, and document everything that happens. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.